Look, you're lucky I haven't kicked you out of here yet. Those were the first words Victor used to welcome me, Evelyn, on that fateful morning. Not a polite greeting, not a single nod, just raw contempt. A sudden rage swelled within me, burning like a long, suppressed fire. I had spent 5 years working like a moth to a flame, building golden bridges for this company, and now this man saw me as an expendable burden to be cast aside? No, that's not how this was going to go down. I fought to suppress the fury boiling in my chest, looking directly into his arrogant face. I needed him to know I wasn't the Rachel from that other story. I would not be treated this way. Let me tell you how it all started, from the very moment he stepped into my life. My name is Evelyn. For the past 5 years, I've been the secret right hand, the woman no one saw, but everyone knew about. There was no spotlight, no stage, just endless days of tireless work. I was the first person to arrive before dawn and the last to leave when the city was fast asleep. While others were pouring their first cup of coffee, I was already knee-deep in financial reports, preparing slide decks and cross-checking every client contract. I still remember the 4 major deals that made my name. First was the deal with Zenith Solutions, a shark in the industry. They were notoriously difficult, and I spent 19 nights working straight, even sleeping on the office sofa, just to close that contract. Everyone said I was crazy, but I knew what I was doing. Then came Apex Dynamics. Their board of directors changed their minds constantly, like they were playing a game of cat and mouse. I had to use all my experience and cunning to revise every single word and number for over 3 months, until they had no choice but to sign. After that came the 2 contracts with Helios Enterprises and the Riven Group, 2 new giants in the tech industry. I practically flew back and forth across Europe, canceling all my personal plans, and even missed my mom's birthday just to finalize the deals. These back-to-back victories not only brought prestige to the company, but also proved my worth. In total, I had directly brought in over $16 million in new revenue. More than anyone, I knew these numbers had saved the company's entire fiscal year. I believed that with everything I had contributed, this was my time to be recognized. I had prepared a comprehensive report detailing every number, every chart, and every glowing testimonial from clients. This wasn't just a negotiation for a raise, it was a battle for fairness. That morning, the office was tense. Marcus, the colleague who was once my friend, now deliberately avoided me. His face showed a clear look of anxiety, as if he already knew what was coming. I looked at him, then at the folder in my hand, smiling with steely resolve. I was no longer a naive little bird. I was a tigress, and I was hungry. I took a deep breath, then pushed open the door decisively. Victor didn't even look up. He sat at the head of the table, legs crossed, scrolling on his phone. I stood there, waiting patiently, my eyes as cold as a razor blade. He finally looked up, and I saw a half-smile full of mockery. "Don't waste my time," he said, motioning for me to sit down. "Make it quick." I didn't sit. I stood tall, clutching the folder, and placed it on the table in front of him. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "There's no need to rush. I want you to take your time and read it." He frowned, looking annoyed. "I don't have time for this nonsense." "This isn't nonsense," I emphasized, each word like a hammer blow. "Over the past 12 months, I successfully closed 4 major contracts: Zenith, Apex, Helios, and Riven, bringing in over $16 million in revenue. I'm here to ask for a salary that's commensurate with my contributions." He flipped through the folder as if it were a dirty napkin. "You know, I'll be blunt," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You should be grateful I'm even keeping you here. Say that again, I growled. What the hell did you just say? He let out a derisive laugh. What you did? It was acceptable. But you're not the only one here. Anyone could have signed those deals. You were just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. The anger erupted. A fierce blaze consumed every cell in my body. I didn't feel confused or powerless like the Rachel in that other story. I felt challenged, insulted, and I would not back down. You don't know a thing, I spat, my voice filled with indignation. I stayed up 19 nights straight to close the Zenith deal. I spent 3 months rewriting the contract for Apex. Do you have any idea? Do you have the slightest clue? He stood up, walked to the window, his back to me. Listen, Evelyn, he said, his voice growing colder. Ambition is good, but don't delude yourself. These numbers don't mean anything. As I was about to leave the room, my hand on the doorknob, I heard him mutter, as if to himself, You people always want more. That was the final straw. I stopped and turned to face him, not because of the numbers, not because of the insult, but because of those 2 words. You people? He wasn't just dismissing my work. He was dismissing who I was. You're right, I said. I do want more. I want respect. Something you, and this company, will never have. With that, I pulled the door open and walked out, leaving Victor standing there, his expression slowly changing to one of disbelief. I felt no regret as I slammed the door shut. I walked away with my head held high, but inside, a storm was raging. It wasn't the rage of fear, but of pure, unadulterated fury. In a meeting that lasted less than 5 minutes, Victor had reduced my 5 years of dedication to a stroke of dumb luck, and my very existence to an irritating inconvenience. He didn't just deny the value of my work, he denied my entire being. As I returned to my desk, the air in the office grew thick and tense. All eyes were on me, and a low hum of whispers began to rise. The whispers weren't loud, but they were sharp, like needles pricking my skin. Marcus, my former friend, deliberately spoke a little too loudly. Look at her, coming back from the director's office. I bet she was begging for something. He was trying to curry favor with Victor, trampling on me to prove his loyalty. But I wouldn't give him the satisfaction. I sat down, my hands clenched so tight my knuckles turned white. I opened my laptop, and my angry fingers flew across the keyboard, typing out a short but heavy email. Due to some internal changes, I may no longer be able to personally oversee your projects. If you require my direct assistance, please contact me at this personal email address. I didn't hesitate. I sent that email to all my most important clients: Zenith Solutions, Apex Dynamics, Helios Enterprises, and the Riven Group. It was a digital grenade, a cold and calculated act of rebellion. I wasn't begging for help. I was giving them a choice. I was challenging them, daring them to prove that Victor's arrogance would come at a steep price. Just a few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Clara, the head of operations at Zenith Solutions. Evelyn, I just got your email. Are you leaving? Because if you are, we're leaving too. Her voice was powerful and resolute. Our team only works with you. Your knowledge of our systems is irreplaceable. If you're not on this project, we're pulling out immediately. At the same time, an email from Apex Dynamics' legal department appeared in my inbox. Our contract has a clause specifying that Evelyn will be the primary project manager. If she is replaced, it will be a breach of contract on your company's part. We will halt all activity and consider legal action. I had personally written that clause into the contract. And then, the final offer arrived from Helios Enterprises. Evelyn, the email began, we have been truly impressed with your work. We would like to formally invite you to join us as Senior Operations Director for our European Executive Committee. The salary and benefits package are attached. The number on the attached PDF took my breath away. It was several times higher than my current salary. The noise in the office returned, but it wasn't the sound of conversation. It was a nervous murmur. My phone kept ringing. A notification from HR requested my immediate presence at a meeting with Victor. Everyone knew something was happening. They could see the change in my posture, the look of fierce determination on my face. They saw the calls I was taking, the emails I was reading, and the cold satisfaction that was beginning to replace my fury. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice, and I was going to show them that their contempt would be their undoing. I would walk into that meeting not with a report, but with irrefutable proof. This time, I was the one in control. The email from HR had arrived just as I was about to hit send on my resignation letter. It was a summons, a direct order from Victor himself. Urgent meeting. Your presence is required at 1 p.m. I saw the clock on my computer screen tick closer to the appointed time. It was a little after noon, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. All the numbers were from my major clients. I let them go to voicemail, knowing I needed to focus. My colleagues were now huddled in small groups, whispering and stealing glances at me. They knew. The silence that had settled after my outburst had been broken by the panicked scurrying of department heads and the nervous energy of people who knew a storm was coming. I had been sitting in my office for an hour, rereading the legal threats from Apex Dynamics, the urgent pleas from Zenith Solutions, and the official offer from Helios Enterprises. The documents were my shield and my sword. This wasn't about a raise anymore. This was a battle for my dignity, and I was holding all the cards. At exactly 12:55 p.m., I stood up and straightened my jacket. I walked past the terrified faces of my colleagues, who now avoided my gaze. Marcus, the once confident friend, was a pale shadow of himself, his eyes glued to his computer screen as if a spreadsheet held the secrets of the universe. I smiled a small, grim smile to myself. I didn't knock. I just walked into Victor's office. He was standing, arms crossed, staring out the window, just as he had been yesterday. He was on the phone, his voice a tense, low murmur. I don't care. Tell them we're working on it. Just find a way to make it right. He hung up and turned to me, his smirk gone. His face was a mask of calculated coldness. Sit, he commanded, gesturing to the chair. I didn't. I remained standing, a folder clutched in my hands. There's no need. I'm not here for a conversation, Victor. I'm here for a resolution. His eyes narrowed. Don't get ahead of yourself. Do you know how much damage you've caused? We've had frantic calls all morning. Zenith, Apex. What did you say to them? I didn't say anything, Victor. I just gave them my personal contact information as a courtesy. I let the word courtesy hang in the air, dripping with sarcasm. They're just loyal to the person they actually work with. He paced around the room. We can fix this. You just need to send a follow-up email. Let them know it was a misunderstanding. You'll be back on their accounts, and we can discuss a new compensation plan. I don't need a new compensation plan, Victor. I have one. He stopped, a look of confusion on his face. What are you talking about? I walked forward and placed the documents on his desk. The formal letter from Helios Enterprises was on top, with the salary number bolded. He picked it up, his eyes scanning the page, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. This is ridiculous, he muttered, dropping the paper. They're poaching our talent. No, I said, my voice as steady as a rock. They're valuing talent that you refuse to recognize. I pointed to the other documents. That's a legal threat from Apex Dynamics and a contract termination warning from Zenith Solutions. They're all loyal to me, not to this company, and certainly not to you." He leaned forward, his face just inches from mine. "Evelyn, let's be reasonable. I'll double your salary. I'll make you a team lead. I'll create a new position for you." He was trying to sound generous, but his voice was laced with desperation. I took a step back. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about the money. This is about what you said. You people always want more. You didn't just insult my work, you insulted me. You stripped away my dignity and made me feel like an object you could throw away. I'm not here to be fixed, Victor. I'm not broken." I picked up the resignation letter from my jacket pocket, a single page I had printed earlier. "I'm finished." I placed it on his desk, right on top of the documents that were about to bring his career to its knees. He watched me, his jaw slack, a look of utter defeat in his eyes. He didn't say a word. He knew he had lost. I turned and walked out, not with a slam, but with a quiet dignity. The office was dead silent as I passed by. This time, no one dared to whisper. They all knew. The ghost had finally stepped out of the shadows, and in her wake, she had left a path of undeniable destruction. My journey wasn't ending. It was just beginning. I walked out of Victor's office, leaving him to face the fallout alone. The door shut behind me with a heavy click that echoed down the corridor, louder in my ears than it had any right to be. The silence in the hallway was deafening. It wasn't the calm before the storm. It was the eerie stillness after the lightning had struck, when the world holds its breath to measure the damage. The office, usually buzzing with half-heard conversations and the clatter of keyboards, felt like a tomb. My colleagues, once a chorus of whispers and side glances, were now statues frozen in place, their heads bowed, their eyes pinned to their screens, as if the light from their monitors could shield them from reality. No one dared to look at me, no one except Marcus. His gaze flickered upward for a fraction of a second, just long enough for me to catch the flash of fear and shame in his eyes before he quickly looked away. That single glance spoke louder than any apology he could ever give. I didn't stop at my desk. I didn't need to. My mug, my files, my pens, all the little anchors of routine had become meaningless relics of a life I no longer recognized. There was nothing left for me here. My footsteps rang out against the polished floor, each one peeling me further away from 5 years of loyalty, sacrifice, and betrayal. I pushed through the glass doors, stepped into the crisp air outside, and walked straight to my car. The city loomed around me like a stranger. The skyline, once a symbol of ambition and belonging, now felt foreign, hostile even. These were streets I had memorized, every shortcut, every coffee shop, every late-night drive home, but now they seemed like the twisting alleys of an unfamiliar maze. I started the car and drove, my hands steady on the wheel, though beneath the surface, a storm still churned. I was free, but freedom didn't feel like relief yet. It felt like fire, a low burn of anger and defiance against the injustice I had endured. My phone buzzed violently against the console. Clara, Zenith Solutions. The urgency in her repeated calls told me this wasn't a courtesy check-in. I pulled over and answered. "Evelyn, what is happening over there?" Clara's voice cracked with panic. "We just received an email saying our project is being suspended." "Suspended? Who is handling my account now? Victor won't take my calls?" Her words tumbled out fast and sharp. I closed my eyes for a moment, pressing the phone tighter against my ear. "Clara," I said carefully, "I can't give you details right now. But I am no longer with the company." Silence, then a sharp intake of breath. "You're not. What? Evelyn, you're the only reason we even stayed with them? Don't you get that? We don't care about the company. We care about you." Her voice steadied, trading panic for resolve. "We need this project to move forward, and without you, it's a dead end. I'll be frank. We're considering our options, but my vote is clear. I'd rather follow you than stay tied to their sinking ship. So tell me, what's your next move?" For the first time since walking out, I inhaled deeply, the weight shifting slightly from my chest. "I just accepted an offer from Helios Enterprises, Senior Operations Director. It's a fantastic opportunity." "That's perfect!" Clara's panic dissolved into an excited rush. "We're already clients of Helios. We've wanted a closer partnership for months. Evelyn, this is a sign. Call me back as soon as you can. We need to talk about transferring our business." When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My lips had curved into something rare and unfamiliar in recent months, a genuine, triumphant smile. The dominoes had begun to fall, and for once, they weren't crashing down on me. I drove aimlessly until I found a quiet cafe tucked between two tall buildings. I ordered nothing, just sat with a glass of water, needing space to process the surreal momentum of the day. The phone rang again. Marcus. For a moment, I hovered over the decline button. He was the last voice I wanted to hear. But curiosity, perhaps cruelty, made me answer. "Evelyn?" His voice was a whisper, frayed with desperation. "Evelyn, are you there?" "What do you want, Marcus?" My tone was cold, a blade sharpened by betrayal. I just heard," he stammered. "Is it true? You left?" "Yes," I said flatly. "And from the sound of things, a lot of our clients are leaving too." A tremor of fear entered his voice. "They're a mess in there. Victor's screaming. He said you sabotaged the company. He's been trying to reach Apex's lawyers, but they won't pick up. Evelyn, I'm sorry. For everything I said. For what I did." The apology landed with no weight. It wasn't for me. It was for him, a flimsy lifeline tossed into a sea he had chosen to drown in. I felt nothing. No vindication, no joy. Only emptiness. "Your apology isn't needed, Marcus. Your loyalty was never to me. It was to your own ambition." I hung up before he could scramble for more words. For the first time all day, the anger inside me quieted, replaced by something steadier. Resolve. The company I had once bled for was unraveling, but I wasn't sinking with it. I was about to set sail on my own terms. The phone rang once more, an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then answered. "Miss Evelyn?" The voice was calm, professional, warm in a way that immediately steadied me. "This is Christopher from Helios Enterprises. We just received formal notification from your company that you are no longer employed there. I'd like to congratulate you. Your new office is ready." For a long moment, I said nothing. I simply sat there, the noise of the cafe fading, the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. My revolution had begun. The new office felt like a different universe, an entirely new chapter written in light and space. Gone were the cramped cubicles, the suffocating partitions, and the stale air recycled endlessly by indifferent vents. Instead, sunlight spilled across floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the sleek surfaces with a golden sheen. The skyline stretched wide and vast before me. Not a cage, but a horizon, a promise of possibilities unshackled. My desk was unlike anything I had ever worked at. Minimalist, elegant, a single pane of polished wood, with nothing to distract the eye except a perfectly arranged white orchid at its corner. It wasn't just a desk, it was a declaration. This place wasn't designed for survival. It was designed for creation. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an employee. I felt like I belonged. Christopher, my new colleague from Helios Enterprises, walked in with a smile that carried no trace of calculation. His handshake was firm, genuine, steady, such a stark contrast to Victor's rehearsed grip, always meant to dominate rather than connect. "Welcome, Evelyn," he said warmly, gesturing toward the space. "All this is for you. The team is eager to meet you. They've heard about your reputation. Let's just say, the buzz is good. Very good." For a moment, I simply stood there, stunned. In my old office, my name had been muttered in whispers, often followed by side glances and half smirks. Reputation there was a double-edged sword, envied, resented, exploited. But here, it was different. Here, my reputation wasn't a rumor, it was a credential. Pride swelled in my chest, sharp and exhilarating, and for the first time in my career, it didn't feel dangerous to let it show. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Clara. "Evelyn, we've had our legal team review the offer. We are officially switching to Helios. We're happy to be your first client here." I read the words twice, then a third time, before a smile stretched across my face. The first domino had fallen, and with it came a release of tension I hadn't realized I was still carrying. "Christopher," I said, turning toward him, "I have good news. Zenith Solutions just confirmed. They're moving their business here. Officially." His eyes lit up, surprise quickly morphing into delight. "That's fantastic. Evelyn, do you realize what this means? Zenith is huge. This gives us leverage we didn't expect for another 6 months, maybe a year. You've just changed the trajectory of this department, maybe the company." I nodded, but inwardly I was still absorbing it. The move wasn't just about business. It was validation. Proof that relationships built on trust and respect outlast contracts signed in boardrooms. The rest of the day passed in a blur of introductions, brainstorming sessions, and plans that stretched far beyond the immediate horizon. Christopher asked my input on everything: hiring, strategy, restructuring. And when I spoke, he listened, not with the vacant nods of someone biding time, but with intent. He valued what I said. It was disorienting in the best way. By evening, the office had emptied. I stood by the tall windows, the city lights flickering alive one by one below, and thought of the chaos I'd left behind. Victor's empire, already cracking, must now be crumbling under the weight of its arrogance. With Zenith gone, Apex Dynamics would likely follow. Orion and Riven wouldn't be far behind. Their downfall was inevitable. And yet, as I stared into the sprawling night, I felt no glee, no triumph, only a quiet sense of justice. Actions had consequences. Their sin had been underestimating me, dismissing me, trying to strip me of worth. Now the cost of that blindness was being paid in full. My phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. For a second, I considered ignoring it, but something in me compelled me to answer. "Evelyn?" The voice was thin, frayed. Then it broke into a stammer. "It's Darren. Marcus. Look, I don't know what else to do. Victor just fired me. He said I was part of the problem. Evelyn, I'm sorry. For everything. For standing by. For saying what I did. Please, I closed my eyes, a dull ache pressing at the edges of my chest. Marcus. Once, he had been a friend. Once, I had trusted him. But when the walls closed in on me, he hadn't just stayed silent. He had joined the chorus against me. "Marcus," I said softly, firmly, "what happens to you now isn't because of me. It's because of your choices." There was a sharp breath on the other end, as if he wanted to argue, to plead. But I ended the call before he could. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, but with the weight of finality. I set the phone down, turned back to the glittering skyline, and let the silence settle over me. I had lost something today, a friendship, a piece of the past. But I had gained something greater. Freedom, purpose, a future I could shape on my own terms. For the first time in years, the city outside didn't feel hostile or foreign. It felt alive. It felt like possibility. And as I stood in the quiet of my new sanctuary, watching the lights flicker like stars scattered across the earth, I realized the truth. The old world was gone. A new one had just begun. The news of my departure and the exodus that followed spread like wildfire across the industry. In a matter of days, the company I had once devoted myself to, a place that had once seemed unshakable, was being whispered about in hushed tones and frantic conversations. The whispers that had once clung to me like shadows now clung to Victor and his crumbling empire. I didn't need to read the trade publications to know what was happening. My inbox, once full of silence and formal requests, was now overflowing with messages from former colleagues and acquaintances who had once kept their distance. Some begged for advice, some sought jobs, others simply wanted to tell me that everything had collapsed the moment I walked away. "They're a total mess," Olivia said, leaning across the cafe table. She had always been friendly but cautious, never stepping too close to the fire. Now, her eyes darted around the crowded shop, as though someone might overhear her secrets. "Victor is losing his mind. He's been screaming on the phone with lawyers all day. Zenith and Apex are gone completely, and Orion Group—" She lowered her voice even further. "Orion is already in talks with Helios." I stirred my coffee slowly, keeping my expression neutral. I can't say I'm surprised. He undervalued the very things that kept the company afloat. Olivia exhaled, shoulders sagging. "He's trying to pin the blame on everyone else. He called me into his office and accused me of being complicit. Me! I had nothing to do with any of this. And Marcus, he called him a traitor for not stopping you." Her voice faltered, then steadied. "I'm done, Evelyn. I can't work there anymore. Do you know of anyone hiring?" For a moment, I studied her face, the fatigue, the quiet desperation. She didn't deserve to be collateral damage in Victor's implosion. I slipped her the name of a contact at a rival firm. "Reach out to them. Tell them I sent you. You'll find something better." A small, grateful smile tugged at her lips. "Thank you." As she left, I sat back and let the bitter truth settle. I felt no joy in watching my former colleagues scramble for safety, but there was a grim satisfaction in knowing the truth had finally clawed its way to the surface. The company had rotted from within long before I left. My departure had only revealed the cracks that had always been there. Life at Helios was the starkest of contrasts. My days brimmed with energy instead of dread. Meetings weren't battles for survival, but collaborations where ideas thrived. Christopher's leadership was steady and generous. He didn't hover, didn't undermine. He trusted me. My new team was a blend of veterans and fresh talent, each voice encouraged, each contribution valued. The air itself seemed lighter here, alive with possibility. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was dragging a weight behind me. I was moving forward. That evening, as I locked up my office and stepped into the crisp air, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. "Evelyn," she said, her voice full of that quiet concern only mothers carry. "I just got a call from someone at your old company." I froze mid-step. "From them? What did they want?" "They asked about you, wanted to know if you were okay, and then—" Her tone sharpened. "They asked if you would ever consider coming back?" For a heartbeat, the street noise around me faded. My old company, after everything, wanted me back? "Mom," I said carefully, "what did you tell them?" Her reply was firm, almost fierce. I told them you were exactly where you needed to be, and that they should have treated you better when they had the chance. A wave of warmth surged through me. Pride, gratitude, love, emotions far stronger than the cold anger their request had awoken. Thank you, Mom. You're the best. As I ended the call, a cold smile curved across my lips. They wanted me back. The same people who had mocked me, diminished me, discarded me, now found themselves begging for my return. But the woman they thought they could summon at will no longer existed. I had shed her skin. I had found my strength, my worth, my voice. I wasn't their invisible anchor anymore. I was the captain of my own ship, and ships do not turn back to sinking harbors. The evening air was sharp and clean, carrying with it a quiet promise. I walked to my car unhurried, savoring each step. The silence wasn't lonely. It was rich, full, a reminder that solitude can be strength. The journey here had been brutal, lined with betrayals and battles I hadn't chosen, but had been forced to fight. And yet, each wound had carved out space for something new to grow. Now, standing at the threshold of a future unbound, I felt something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Hope. The phone rang again, slicing through the steady rhythm of my thoughts as I reviewed the final draft of the Helios project proposal. The screen lit up with an unfamiliar number, yet the area code stopped me cold. It belonged to my old city, the place I had severed ties with months ago. For a heartbeat, I considered ignoring it, letting the past fade into static. But something inside urged me to answer. Evelyn, thank God you picked up. The voice on the other end was ragged, almost broken. I knew it instantly. Victor, the man who had once been my boss, my supposed ally, the one who had humiliated me in front of an entire boardroom. Evelyn, we need you, he continued, each word trembling under the weight of desperation. This has gone too far. I leaned back in my chair, letting his panic wash over me like a bitter symphony. Slowly, almost involuntarily, a cold smile curled on my lips. Gone too far? I repeated, my tone sharp and deliberate. You mean you're finally reaping what you sowed, Victor? He tried to press on, pretending not to hear the venom in my voice. Zenith just terminated their contract. Completely. Apex's legal team is demanding a six-figure settlement for breach of contract. And that's not all. Orion Group called me this morning. They're transferring their entire account to Helios. They said you're the one managing it. That's right, I answered smoothly, my voice steady as steel. I am. Silence on the other end, broken only by his ragged breathing. Then the dam burst. We're bleeding money, Evelyn. Do you hear me? Bleeding. We're on the edge of bankruptcy. This is my company, my life's work. You can't do this to me? His voice cracked, stripped of its usual arrogance. Your company? I laughed, a low, hollow sound. You treated it like your personal playground. You had every chance, Victor. Every chance to see me, to value what I brought. Instead, you dismissed me. You called me lucky to even have a job. Do you remember that? Do you remember looking me in the eye and reducing 19 years of loyalty and brilliance into a cheap insult? The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. I could feel his shame, the weight of recognition pressing down on him. Finally, his voice returned, this time stripped of pride. A whisper, raw and broken. What do you want? A counteroffer? A partnership? Tell me, Evelyn. Just tell me what you want, and I'll give it to you. Just come back. For a moment, I closed my eyes. A younger version of me might have imagined this moment. Victor begging, groveling, offering terms. That Evelyn might have seen it as justice. But not anymore. I'm not here to be fixed, Victor, I said, my tone sharp as shattered glass. And I'm not coming back. You had your chance. You squandered it. Now it's my turn, and I choose a future where I am valued, not discarded like a broken tool. He made a sound, part sob, part fury. Please, Evelyn, I'm begging you, tell me how to fix this. I shook my head, though he couldn't see it. You can't. It's too late. The damage is irreversible. You don't get to unmake what you've done. And with that, I ended the call. The room fell silent again, but it was a silence charged with victory, not emptiness. For the first time in years, I felt no anger, no bitterness gnawing at the edges of my soul. Instead, there was a quiet satisfaction, a peace that came from knowing I had not only escaped, but prevailed. Victor's empire was crumbling, and I hadn't lifted a sword in rage. I had simply chosen myself. I had built something stronger, brighter, freer. The ghost they had tried to erase had returned, and this time she was untouchable. I turned back to my desk, to the glowing proposal that would soon become the cornerstone of a new empire. My empire. I let the smile linger, steady and full of fire, then dove back into my work. The battle was over, and I had won. My world had shifted in a way that was both subtle and monumental. The chaos I had left behind, the screaming meetings, the rushed deadlines, the constant fear of being the next scapegoat, was no longer mine to carry. From a distance, it sounded less like the roaring storm that once consumed me, and more like a faint rumble of thunder rolling far away. The company I had poured 19 years of my life into was crumbling, and it had nothing to do with bad luck. It was unraveling because of arrogance, blindness, and the casual cruelty of those who believed people were replaceable. What was once touted as a billion-dollar empire was now the hot gossip of the industry, a cautionary tale whispered in conference rooms and over late-night drinks between executives. I heard it all secondhand. Massive layoffs, entire departments gutted overnight, contracts collapsing, investors pulling out, the public relations machine working overtime to spin disaster into restructuring. To everyone else, it was a scandal. To me, it was confirmation. The empire that had humiliated me was bleeding out, and the world was finally seeing what I had known for years. The rot had been there all along. But I wasn't a bystander anymore. I was the catalyst. At Helios Enterprises, my new office hummed with a different kind of energy. Vibrant, purposeful, alive. This was no longer survival. This was creation. Innovation wasn't just a slogan plastered on a wall here. It was the lifeblood of the company. Talent wasn't just acknowledged. It was celebrated. For the first time in years, I was surrounded by people who believed in building something meaningful, not in hoarding power or chasing titles. The team at Helios was a mix of seasoned veterans and bright, ambitious young minds. Some had left toxic environments like I had. Others were fresh, unscarred, eager to shape the future. And all of them were here for the same reason, to build something different. Clara from Zenith Solutions became one of the first to visit my office regularly. Her loyalty, once tied by fear to my former company, had shifted into something stronger: respect. One afternoon, while poring over a new proposal, she let out a sharp laugh. "You wouldn't believe the disaster Victor created," she said, shaking her head. He tried to hand our account to a different manager, and the guy had no idea what he was doing. It was like watching someone set fire to a house they didn't even own. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. That's because he never cared about the work. Victor only cared about being the man at the top, no matter who had to be crushed beneath him to get there. Clara leaned forward, her eyes blazing with conviction. And that's why people are following you now, because you actually care. Her words lingered long after she left. The day after Victor's desperate phone call, a message arrived from Apex Dynamics. I expected another legal threat, another demand for damages. Instead, their letter was almost reverent, an official proposal to transfer their legal and business operations to Helios. Their reasoning was blunt. Unstable business practices at my former company. My team cheered when I shared the news. For me, it wasn't just a win. It was proof that integrity could outlast deceit. As weeks blurred into a month, the momentum only grew. Helios, under my guidance, acquired not just new contracts but entire organizations. The Riven Group, once tightly aligned with Victor's empire, jumped ship and came to us. Then the Orion Group followed, not only transferring their account, but also offering up some of their best people to join our team. Bit by bit, the talented individuals who had once been scattered, people I had trained, mentored, fought alongside, were reuniting under one roof. It felt less like a company and more like a homecoming. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the city skyline, I walked out of the Helios building and saw Marcus standing there. He was holding a paper cup of coffee, though it looked more like a lifeline than a drink. His shoulders sagged under invisible weight, his suit wrinkled in a way it never used to be. When our eyes met, shame flooded his face. "Evelyn," he said, his voice low, almost fragile. I wanted to say congratulations. I heard about everything, the acquisitions, the contracts. You've built something incredible." I studied him for a long moment. Marcus had once been part of the circle that dismissed me, that sided with Victor when it was convenient, that chose silence when cruelty was happening in plain sight. Yet now, standing in front of me, he was a ghost of the man who once believed power made him untouchable. "Marcus," I said quietly, "I didn't build this for revenge. I built it for everyone who has ever been underestimated. For those who were told they weren't enough, who were made to feel disposable. This," I gestured to the Helios Tower behind me, "is proof that there's another way, a better way." His eyes glistened, and for a second, I saw not an enemy, but a man crushed by the weight of his own choices. He extended his hand, tentative and trembling. I took it. His grip was weak, but his regret was strong enough to fill the silence between us. "You had a chance," I thought, but didn't say. "You chose wrong." As I walked away, there was no rush of triumph, no intoxicating sense of conquest. What I felt was steadier, quieter, and infinitely more powerful. It was the confidence of someone who had not just survived, but transformed. I hadn't clawed my way back to get even. I had risen to build something that would last. My legacy wouldn't be defined by betrayal or revenge. It would be defined by creation, by proving that strength comes not from tearing others down, but from lifting people up. The empire I was building at Helios wasn't just mine. It belonged to everyone who believed in dignity, respect, and value. And as I looked at the horizon that evening, I knew this was only the beginning. The company was a ghost ship. I knew it, and so did the rest of the industry. The news wasn't just gossip. It was a confirmed reality. Financial reports, leaked by former employees, showed a devastating quarterly loss. With Zenith and Apex gone, and Helios having acquired their two biggest prospects, the company's stock had plummeted, and their once proud reputation was in tatters. I was in my new office, reviewing a proposal for a new project, when my phone rang. The number was blocked. I almost didn't answer, but a sense of finality made me pick it up. "Evelyn, is that you?" The voice was a pathetic, broken version of the one I knew. It was Victor. He wasn't arrogant anymore. He was desperate. "Victor," I said, my voice as calm as a placid lake. "What can I do for you?" "Evelyn, you have to come back," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "I'll give you anything. A partnership, a seat on the board, a blank check. Just come back and fix this. Please, I'm begging you." I closed my eyes, picturing the man who had stood before me just a few weeks ago, his face a mask of contempt. "You don't get it, do you? I'm not here to be fixed, and I'm not here to fix your mess. This is my livelihood, Evelyn, my family. You're destroying everything I built," he cried. "You're the one who destroyed it," I countered, my voice rising with a controlled fury. "You didn't build anything. You simply occupied a position of power and treated the people who did the real work like garbage. I am not responsible for the consequences of your arrogance. You are." He was silent for a moment, a choked sob on the other end of the line. "What did I do wrong, Evelyn?" "Tell me. I'll do anything to make it right." "You looked at my success and called it luck," I said, my voice icy. "You looked at my 5 years of dedication and told me I was easily replaceable. You looked at my ambition and called it self-entitlement. You didn't just insult me. You insulted the very idea of hard work and loyalty. And now, you're paying the price. This isn't about me. This is about you and what you deserve." I hung up the phone. I didn't need to hear his response. The call was a final, pathetic plea, a testament to his defeat. The man who had dismissed my worth with a single, arrogant sentence was now reduced to begging. The silence that followed was not just the end of a conversation. It was the final nail in the coffin of his career. I put my phone down, a sense of closure washing over me. The ghost of the past was finally laid to rest. I had proven my worth, not with words, but with actions that spoke for themselves. The invisible anchor was no longer a ghost. She was a force of nature, and she was just getting started. I finally had a moment to myself. It was a Saturday afternoon, a rarity in my new life, which was a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and exciting new ventures. I was sitting at a cafe, the same one where I had gone to process my shock and rage just a few months ago. The air was crisp, the coffee was warm, and my phone was quiet. My thoughts drifted back to the journey that had brought me here. It wasn't just about a job change or a raise. It was about proving a point. It was about fighting for my worth when no one else would. I had walked into that final meeting with Victor, not as an employee asking for a favor, but as a force demanding respect. The look on his face, a mix of disbelief and utter defeat, was something I would never forget. The old company had officially filed for bankruptcy the week before. The news had been confirmed by an article in a major business journal. I read it with a detached sense of finality. The article detailed how the company's downfall was a direct result of the sudden departure of key talent and the loss of major contracts. It didn't mention my name, but it didn't need to. The entire industry knew the story. My own career, however, was soaring. My team at Helios Enterprises was a powerhouse. We had secured a new, lucrative contract with the Riven Group, which had been a top priority. My leadership style was a direct contrast to Victor's. I empowered my team, celebrated their successes, and valued their opinions. I was building a culture of trust and respect, a legacy that I was more proud of than any project or deal. I looked down at the coffee cup in my hands, a small, triumphant smile on my face. The journey had been difficult, filled with frustration and anger, but it had all been worth it. The invisible anchor, the woman who had lived in the shadows, was now a leader in her own right. I had not only escaped a toxic environment, I had built an empire in its place. My story was not one of revenge, but of resilience. It was a testament to the fact that hard work, when combined with self-respect, could overcome any obstacle. My phone vibrated, a new email notification. It was from Christopher. The subject line read, "New opportunity." I opened it, a sense of excitement and anticipation building in my chest. The world was full of new beginnings, and I was ready for every single one of them. My journey was far from over. It was just starting. The story of Evelyn is not just a cautionary tale about lack of recognition in the workplace, but a powerful lesson on owning your self-worth. It shows us that if you are the woman behind the curtain, you must learn to step into the light and show everyone how valuable you are. Don't accept disrespect from anyone, because their arrogance can ultimately destroy an entire system. Evelyn's fight was not for revenge, but to prove that her silent efforts deserved to be celebrated. The key takeaway is this: build your own value, because one day it will be your ticket to escape a place you no longer belong and to start a new, promising journey. Thank you for taking the time to listen to Evelyn's story. If you found this story meaningful, please give it a like to show your support. Don't forget to leave a comment below to share your thoughts or similar stories you may have. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next videos, where I'll bring you even more compelling stories. See you next time.